Have you ever wondered how far a person will go to maintain power? History is full of ambitious leaders, but few figures are as remembered for their cruelty as the Bible's three most terrifying queens. Jezebel, Athaliah, and Herodias went far beyond simple rulers. They manipulated, betrayed, and even killed to ensure their authority. But what led them to these extreme acts? And what lessons can we still learn from them today? In this video, you will discover the secrets of these historical figures, their rise to power, the sacrifices they made, and the tragic fates they faced. Prepare for stories that challenge the imagination, with political intrigue, haunting prophecies, and unimaginable acts of betrayal. And stay until the end, because there are surprising reflections on how these acts of evil resonate to this day. The first queen on this list is Jezebel. She was born in Phoenicia and brought with her the worship of the god Baal, directly challenging the traditions of Israel. But Jezebel was not just a fervent devotee. She was a strategist, manipulative, and ruthless. By marrying Ahab, she not only won the king's heart, but also his mind. When Jezebel arrived in Israel, it didn't take long for her to begin imposing her religion on the people, eliminating the prophets of the God of Israel, and establishing the cult of Baal. But his darkest moment came when he manipulated Ahab into taking Naboth's vineyard. Naboth had refused to sell his property, and Jezebel, determined to fulfill her husband's wishes, planned his death. She falsified charges against Naboth, ensuring that he was executed unjustly. Here, we need to pause. What would you do in Naboth's place? Do we give in to power or face the risk of fighting for our principles? This was the essence of Jezebel, someone who saw power as an absolute right, with no room for morality. But fate had different plans. After years of oppression, Jezebel met her end in a cruel way, fulfilling a prophecy from the prophet Elijah. Thrown from a window, her body was devoured by dogs. Her dark legacy, however, did not die with her. Now, meet Athaliah, the daughter of Jezebel, who took her mother's wickedness to new heights. When Athaliah saw her chance to take the throne of Judah, she didn't hesitate. To consolidate his power, he ordered the execution of all descendants of the royal lineage, including his own grandchildren. Can you imagine a more terrible act? But Athaliah's story has a twist. A baby, Joash, was saved by his aunt and raised in secret in the temple for 6 years. During this period, Athaliah ruled with an iron fist, ignoring traditions and defying the people's beliefs. And here's a question for you to ponder. How far will someone go to protect something they believe is rightfully theirs? Athaliah's reign came to an end when the high priest Jehoiada led a conspiracy to dethrone her. Joash was presented as the true heir to the throne, and the people turned against Athaliah. When she tried to resist, she was captured and executed, ending an era of terror in Judah. Last but not least, we have Herodias, a central figure in the New Testament. Herodias is remembered mainly for the event that led to the execution of John the Baptist, but her story goes beyond that. John had criticized her marriage to Herod Antipas, calling it illicit. Offended, Herodias planned a revenge that would change the course of history. During a lavish party, Herodias' daughter Salome danced for Herod and his guests. Impressed, Herod promised to grant any request she made. Influenced by her mother, Salome asked for John the Baptist's head on a platter. Herod, reluctantly, gave in so as not to lose his honor in front of his guests. And here's a provocation. How far can pride lead someone to do something they consider wrong? Herodias got what she wanted, but at a high cost. His excessive ambition ended up destroying his family's stability. His legacy is a reminder that no matter how irresistible power may seem, it can become a death trap. Jezebel, Athaliah, and Herodias. 3 queens, 3 stories of power, ambition, and destruction. What do they have in common? They all crossed the boundaries of morality in search of authority, paying a terrible price for their actions. But perhaps the most important lesson is not in their actions, but in our ability to recognize them. Are we alert to the signs of uncontrolled power in our day? What other Jezebels, Athaliah, and Herodias might be hiding in our society? These stories are not just echoes of the past. They are warnings for the present. What did you think of this journey? Leave your opinion in the comments and share what you learned from these three remarkable figures from the Bible. What makes these stories so remarkable is not only the cruelty of these queens' actions, but also the impact they had on the course of history and the people around them. Jezebel transformed Israel's religious identity. Athaliah almost destroyed David's lineage, and Herodias directly influenced the history of Christianity by taking the life of one of the greatest prophets. They were no ordinary figures, but forces that shaped entire eras. However, if we look closely, we realize that their trajectories share more than just cruel acts. They are examples of what happens when the search for power goes beyond the limits of ethics and humanity. Jezebel destroyed anyone who dared question her. Athaliah placed her ambition above even blood ties. Herodias, obsessed with her reputation, sacrificed an innocent man to satisfy her pride. But here's an intriguing question. Were these women born evil? Or did the environment in which they lived and the power they held transform them? Jezebel was shaped by a culture that worshipped Baal and saw power as something to be won at any cost. When she arrived in Israel, she faced resistance because she was a foreigner and for introducing practices considered heretical. This made her more determined to impose her will, even if it meant manipulating the king and eliminating opponents. Athaliah, in turn, grew up under the shadow of a domineering mother and a submissive father, seeing power as something natural to be exercised without limits. His betrayal of his own family can be seen as an attempt to ensure his survival in a world where weakness was synonymous with death. Herodias, on the other hand, lived in a time when politics was made through family alliances and power games. As a woman, she had few options for exerting influence, and she used the tools at her disposal: manipulation, charm, and intrigue to secure her position. These stories lead us to reflect on how context and circumstances shape people. Could it be that, in a different environment, these queens would have chosen another path? Or is the desire for power something inherent in human nature? Another interesting connection between Jezebel, Athaliah, and Herodias is the way they all face tragic ends, but full of symbolism. Jezebel, who used fear so much to govern, was reduced to nothing when the prophecy of her death was fulfilled. Athaliah, who tried to exterminate David's lineage, saw the continuity of that lineage triumph and mark its end. Herodias, who manipulated everyone around her, lost control when her family fell apart. These endings show us that no matter how unattainable power seems, it is temporary. Sooner or later, the truth comes out, and actions have their consequences. And now, Vivendo de YouTube member, it's up to you to reflect. What can we learn from these stories? Perhaps power, when used without wisdom, becomes an unbearable burden. Or that uncontrolled ambition comes at a high price, not just for those who pursue it, but for everyone around them. The stories of Jezebel, Athaliah, and Herodias are a reminder that choices matter. Every act of kindness or evil leaves marks that not even time can erase. And, above all, they challenge us to look at the world around us and question, where are today's leaders? Are they building a positive legacy or making the same mistakes as these queens? These historical figures continue to teach us, not because we admire what they did, but because their lives show us what we should avoid. Power, after all, is not the problem. The problem is what we do with it. And you? Which of these stories impacted you the most? Leave your opinion in the comments and share it with someone who would also like to know these queens and the lessons they leave us. Looking at these stories, we realize that they are not just isolated narratives from the past, but powerful echoes that resonate to this day. Jezebel, Athaliah, and Herodias were women living in systems that encouraged them to fight for survival and relevance. However, his methods were marked by manipulation, betrayal, and cruelty. But do these behaviors, in a way, not reflect something bigger? Think about how leaders, even in our modern era, often cross ethical boundaries in the name of their goals. This is where the past and present meet. Have we learned from the mistakes of these historical figures? Or do we continue to repeat the same failures, masked by new contexts? These three queens symbolize something deeper. the dangers of putting power above all else. Jezebel was not just satisfied with her place as queen. She wanted to dominate even the spirit of Israel. Athaliah didn't just accept ruling. She eliminated all possible competitors, including innocents, to maintain her position. Herodias, in turn, sacrificed the prophet who dared to defy her, but lost her dignity in doing so. If there's anything we can take away from these stories, it's the reminder that choices always have consequences. And no matter how powerful or untouchable the leaders who make cruel decisions appear to be, time is relentless in revealing the truth. Now imagine how different these stories could be if these women had chosen alternative paths. Jezebel could have used her intelligence to unite cultures rather than destroy them. Athaliah could have ruled Judah as a protector of David's lineage, rather than becoming his executioner. Herodias could have ignored the voice of pride that made her seek revenge, and thus preserved her story as something other than a dark note. But as we know, history is immutable. What we have left is to learn from it. And you, a member of Vivendo to YouTube, have you ever stopped to think about the impact of your own choices? Although most of us are not in control of kingdoms or in a position to decide the fate of nations, every choice we make on a daily basis contributes to the legacy we leave behind. Do you want to be remembered as someone who built or destroyed? This question may seem distant, but it is more relevant than ever. Every day, we are faced with decisions that test our character and shape our future. Just as these queens had the chance to choose between kindness and excessive ambition, we also have the power to choose paths that bring light or darkness to our world. In the end, Jezebel, Athaliah, and Herodias were not only destroyed by external forces, but by the very seed of destruction they planted in their actions. And that's a powerful reminder. No one is above the consequences. So, here's the question. What kind of queen or king would you be? What legacy would you leave if you were in a position of power? Think carefully, because the choices we make today shape how we will be remembered tomorrow. Did you enjoy this journey? Don't forget to share your impressions in the comments and tell us which of these stories impacted you the most. And if you want to continue exploring the mysteries and secrets hidden in the Bible, leave suggestions for future videos. Until the next chapter of this journey through the past.